That's so funny. That is so funny.
All right. The burning question going on all over New York City. I'm from Ohio, LeClerc, B-more, right? Baltimore?
I'm from Maryland.
Maryland.
Yeah.
LeClerc is from Maryland. LeClerc, you grew up in New York City. Everybody moves here to fail at a dream. But Khalid, you were born and raised. So what say you guys? Is New York City dead? Is it dead?
I was born and raised here to fail this dream. So I'm going to say no, it is not dead. New York is changing. You just got to have more loose change in your pocket for when you're eating on the sidewalk cafes and the homeless people run up on you. You got to make sure that you have something for them or they will take you down. Nah, man, New York is evolving. Like, I've lived here my whole life. New York has been like 6 different places since I've lived here. Like, when I was growing up, it was mad rough. It was gully, tuck your chain in. I was the softest kid in the hood. Got robbed all the time. And then I got a little older, still getting robbed. Still getting robbed. I was still getting robbed. 6'1", getting robbed. And then it got a little bit nicer. Giuliani came in. Cops started cracking heads, started cleaning up Times Square. There used to be pimps and hoes in Times Square. Now, Disney. Well, now nothing. But, it's eventually Disney again. And it's just been a different place, man. Now it's downtown. You got high rises going up all over the place. It will always evolve. I am very, very confident that we will have a vaccine at some point soon, and we will get back to some semblance of how things were, but it might even be better because a lot of the rich jerks who are running around the city like it was their personal playground have left and maybe will not come back. So I think that we're going to have more New Yorkers in New York, more artists trying to make a living here in New York, and it's going to be something different, but something still great.
See, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if New York is dead, but that shit's on life support. That shit, New York is struggling. And when I say dead or on life support, I think that it's not just New York that's dying. I think cities are dying. I think that as the internet gets bigger and these networks evolve, the need to live in these centralized locations like New York are becoming less and less important. So there was a time where you had to live in New York so you can be in the room to audition. There used to be a time where you had to be in New York so you can meet the executives, so you can get this record deal. But you can do all that on SoundCloud now, right? You can get deals, you can be discovered on SoundCloud. And like, I live in New York, I still send in tapes for a lot of my auditions when I audition for an acting role. So the need to live here is becoming less and less apparent. Like, a lot of people can make it happen from Baltimore, or can make it happen from Utah. If they have talent, they can still be found because the internet is so big. So it's going to be hard for New York to justify these rents. It's going to be hard for them to make sense of like making people pay a premium to live here when they can live in Nashville, get a crib, like a crib, and be paying $200 for it and still get the same opportunities that we're paying millions of dollars a year to have access to.
You mean you got grass in front of your house and behind your house?
On the sides of the house. What? They got grass all over.
You got a house for your car? Like, what is that?
I'm trying to see y'all thinking short term. I'm trying to think long term. I'm trying to think like not in the moment we're in now where we're all afraid to touch things without gloves on. I'm trying to think like past this period of time, past the vaccine, when things are in a different place. That's what I'm trying to think of. Because right now, yes, it's on life support. New York is on pause. But after there's a vaccine, after people are no longer afraid to gather inside in groups, in for entertainment purposes, for going out purposes, it's going to be a different place.
Well, You're wrong.
I think
why am I wrong?
I think that this is the catalyst. I think that people who have been on the fence about New York, this COVID stuff happened, and they're like, you know what? I don't got to be here. And their job was like, hey, you ain't got to be here. And then they got out. They got to live elsewhere. They went back home, and they realized they can get paid the same amount for their work and live in another place. And a lot of these businesses are not going back to office spaces. they're losing money every month renting out these office spaces in the city. It's a bubble that has been waiting to explode. And I think that like a vaccine isn't going to fix the problems that these businesses are seeing. A vaccine is going to be like, oh, we can go to bars again, but I'm not going back to that office. I'm getting the job done from home. So this idea that a vaccine is going to fix everything, I think that people are having an awakening, and the vaccine is not going to change that.
The thing is, like, New York is only cool when it's plugged in. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a place like, you know, even California or a place like Colorado or whatever, where you just have, you know, upstate New York has beautiful scenery and stuff like that. But New York City is what it is because of the energy, because it's plugged in, because you got things to do. It's not necessarily you go there to see, you go there to do, you go there to meet people, you go there to experience things. And so while New York is where it is right now, a lot of people are realizing like, yo, why am I here right now? And New York really has to come up with a way to let people know like, hey, this is why you should be here. Because before, I couldn't get into stand-up for real, the way I wanted to, you know, from Ohio. I couldn't work in television from Ohio. I couldn't do a lot of things from Ohio. Now, like LeClerc said, a lot of these businesses, I don't know, man, if they don't like centralize back here in New York City, then there's not really going to be a reason to stay here. But I think it's extreme to say, well, you know, something is dead. Like we can't predict the future, but it's going to take more than a couple of months, I think.
It's going to evolve into something different. It's not going to come back to the way it was, probably all the way it was ever again, just because, again, a lot of people who have been here have left and will not come back. But that's not a bad thing, because this city has been overcrowded for a long, long time, right? And some of the drivers of that overcrowding are some of these massive office buildings that, again, are not going to be filled back up. Maybe we can actually live out the promise that de Blasio was talking about with affordable housing, with some of these empty-ass buildings. You know what I'm saying? There are ways the city can use this moment to change the city, possibly for the better.
You know what I'm thinking, too? A lot of people, though, that are leaving, you know, people that moved here from wherever, they're leaving out and they're going back to their towns. And depending on, again, with this vaccine or whatever happens, but they're taking all the things that they learned from here and all the skills that they gained here, and they're taking it back to these towns. And I'm wondering if other towns you're going to see different art communities, different tech communities, different, you know, whatever communities pop up, entertainment industry communities pop up in these smaller towns, as opposed to it just being LA, just being Atlanta, just being New York City. Like, I'm curious to see how that comes up. And it's something interesting that what's his face? I forget his name, but stand-up New York dude who got killed by Seinfeld. Like,
yeah,
he made a good point about bandwidth. The one thing that this is really teaching everybody, teaching these companies, is that people want the option to be able to work remotely. They want the option to be able to do whatever from wherever. And investing in stronger bandwidth, in Zoom, making their technology even that much stronger is really going to make it hard for people to justify, again, paying several $1 million to live in a shoebox with 30 other people. Like, New York is going to have to come better than we're New York, I think, personally, but we'll see.
Yeah.
There's also the realities of the compromises that New Yorkers have been making for so long, right? We've been dealing with the MTA because we have to. We've been dealing with like terrible rental situations because we have to. We've been dealing with the exorbitant prices of food and beverages in the city. We've been making those concessions for so long. The second you're not delivering that goal, that promise that New York is, we're out. I mean, why else would anyone stay here if we can't get the things that we came here for? That's like going to Home Depot and they're like, hey, by the way, we only sell flowers now. Well, I'm you have one job, New York, right? One job, and it's not to give me flowers.
Right.
So we're not gonna pretend that like, oh, New York is cool even without. It's like, no. New York you need to have everything and then some for me to stay here.